Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. Today we are looking at making a Valentine, and it starts flat because of course you want to be able to put it in an envelope and mail it, but when you open it, oh my gosh, it goes from flat to fabulous. It's very, very dimensional, but it's actually easy to do, and I'll turn this so you can see the construction is created just by a series of accordion pleats, and that is what's going to make this dimensionality happen. So to begin with, let's look at how to create the base, the pleated part of this card. I started with cardstock, and I had, just from Staples, I bought some oversized white cardstock that was 11 by 17. I didn't need it that big. This one starts out for this project. It's 6 inches wide, and it's 14.5 inches in length. If you don't want to go buy that at Staples and you have 12 by 12 paper, you can do that as well. It just means that your front cover will be shorter. However, you're going to go back over and cover the front cover with red anyway, so this is where you can compensate for the lack of the paper, and you would do the same thing. You'd need to cover up your little short cover on the inside as well, but you can do this with 12 by 12 paper as well. You want to start first, whatever size your paper is, and you want to just fold it in the middle. Once you have it folded in the middle, you're going to go back through and you're going to mark every 3/4 inches. And if I turn it over, you can see I've done that already. So what you're going to do is just put a little tick 3/4 from the fold, and then another 3/4 inches, do another one, do one more, and then finally a last one. So from the fold, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks. You don't have to actually draw the whole thing. I did that so you could see it more clearly. And then at the top, do the same thing. Every 3/4 inches, put a little tick. Then what you'll do is you'll lay down your ruler, and instead of marking this with a pencil, you'll go back with your scoring tool and you'll lay this down and you'll put a score mark, and you want nice strong pressure on each of these scores. I've already gone ahead and I've scored these, and the reason is I wanted to go through the top thickness and the bottom thickness because I don't want to turn it over and do the same thing. I want to make it a little faster. So I am going to leave it folded, and I am going to use those crease lines, and I'm going to fold through both thicknesses. Now for right now, it's a little easier to show you if I fold them all as mountain folds. It doesn't matter. It's just giving my paper a crease line that's going to be, easier to work with. Once I've folded all of those, then I'll open it up. And if my middle fold is a mountain, then every other one is going to be a valley. So I'm going to reverse fold that. I'll leave this one as a mountain. I'll reverse fold into a valley, and then fold a mountain for this final one. I would do the same thing with the folds on this end. I've got a valley, which will be followed by a mountain, and then a valley, and then a mountain. And what that means is that you now have accordion pleated your paper really pretty quickly and easily in order to create this fun card. So you have it like this. And remember, if you started with 12-inch paper, your cover is shorter, but not to worry, you're going to cover that anyway. I've got one that I've made those creases even stronger sitting here. So here's one that's ready to go. We are going to add all the elements inside, but I think it's easiest to decorate the cover before there's any thickness in here. So let's look at the cover. What I did first is I cut my cover so that it would match the dimensions that were left on my card. So you're going to that means it's 6 inches in width, and this dimension, I'm not sure what it is, but it's just whatever you have left. Make sure though that it does fit an envelope. I'm pretty sure this fits in I know it fits in an A7 envelope. So before I attach this, it's easier to decorate this when it's loose. So I'm going to take this cover and I'm going to start by creating, and I've created this sort of bracket shape out of solid pink paper to begin with. And in order to create the pattern on there, we have so much to show you this time, I'm not going to take the time to actually do it. I went ahead and I stamped it, but all it is just a watermark stamp pad, along with, I've used some of my clear stamps, and then I've used that to create that watermark pattern on there. And if you and then the bracket, if you want it symmetrical, it's simplest to take just copy paper and use that, fold it in half, and then you only have to do one half of this and open it up, and you'll get this line in order to create this border design. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll attach this to what will be the top of the front cover. And you can see I got that a little bit crooked. So the beauty of the removable is until it sets up, it does let me maneuver it around a little bit. If you look back at the cover, the finished cover, you can see there's a couple of other elements. This is done with a stencil. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to take the stencil, and I'm just using a Sakura white pen. In fact, both, someone asked me this week about the tweezers and where to find them. The tweezers, the white pen, the stencil, they're all from a toolkit called Sandi Essentials that I have on HSN. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to lay the stencil down, and this is my handwriting / printing. I kind of have a combo that I use. I'm going to go ahead and trace around in the white pen to get my guide, and then I would normally go back and color that in. I'm not going to stop to do that now. It turns out that the 0 in the numbers at the end of this are exactly the same as the lowercase o in the stencil. So I would just lay this down once that the white has dried on the Y, trace around that, and then I would lay down. Normally I'd let that dry a little bit, but we'll hurry it up just so that it doesn't take so much time for this video. And do the U. You would go back and color it in with the white pen, and then I'm going to use, the sticker started as white. I'm going to use this love on the inside, but I blackened it in first just by coloring it with a marker. However, this part, the heart, I want to leave white, so I'm just going to peel it off of the liner, and I'll go ahead and attach this to what will be the cover. I'm going to save this because I'm going to use this later on the inside. And so now I'll go ahead and I'll attach this whole thing onto what would be the cover of the card. Now I'm not going to bother to put as much adhesive as you would, once again, simply because it just takes a little too much time. You would want a little more solid coverage than that, but I've pre-cut this, so it's going to line up with my front cover of the card that I folded. Now it's time. Oops, and I even have a little lip. I sort of like how that looks. However, you could also go back and trim that off. In order to get the dimensionality inside, we have to attach all the hearts into the pleats. So to make that happen, let me pull this up and I'll show you. It's easiest actually to start with the back row. So I'm going to start with these tall hearts, and these are Sizzix die cuts, but of course a heart is a simple thing that you can make a pattern and create all different shape hearts. I've got pattern paper for a larger heart. Then I had red, and I decided I wanted a little more pattern, so I added some pink stripes to it, and I'm going to go ahead and layer this, the smaller one, and the tweezers help keep my hands out of the way so I can really see better what I'm doing. I'm going to center this onto the polka dot paper. Now, if you look at mine, I'll pull this over so you can see. If I open this so you can look inside the pleats, notice that the base of the hearts are snipped off. That's because I wanted a stronger chunk of heart, a bigger piece to attach to the pleat. And when you see the whole card together, you don't even see that the tips of those hearts are missing. So right now, before I attach that, I'm going to go ahead and snip off. I mean, it's not very much, just a little bit, but instead of only having this much to stick, when I trim the bottom off. Now the part that's going to stick is a much beefier section. So I'm going to use this as a guide so that I can see how much to trim off what will be the middle heart, which is just different pattern papers but the same shapes. And I'm going to trim some off of there. And I didn't take the time to add the stripe pattern to this, but it's the same concept as the one that's on the top of it right now. So I've gone ahead and I've trimmed the tips off of those, and I'm going to go ahead and actually put it into the first row of pleats. So I need to not, remember my pleats are 3/4 of an inch, so I don't want to put adhesive any more than 3/4. And I'm going to go ahead, and when I place this first one down, I'm going to lay it down so that I can make sure that I haven't gone outside. I don't want it to show, and also make sure that I haven't gone too tall. So there, I'm going to push that down. There I get that first heart. I'm going to go ahead and do the other outside edge because I have no control over where these are placed. They have to stay within the outside edge of the card itself. So I'm going to lay this down and place the second one in position like so. I'll kind of open this up so you can see. And then I'm going to just space the middle one so that it's in the middle equally between the two outside hearts. So you're going to go ahead. You can see that they actually go into the pleats really quickly and easily. For the second row, what I did is I used these, just a different design of a heart at a slight angle. They're nice and thick and chunky, and I picked this style of heart because I may go back and cut out a photo and place the photo, you know, for who these Valentines are going to be to and from into these hearts. And if you want to do that, just take, when you cut the heart out, I'll bring this up so you can see what I mean. Use the negative space as a guide, lay it over the top of your photo so that you can line it up and see where you want to mark, and then cut a heart shaped photo. I have several. You may have a Valentine for sweethearts. It may be these happen to be cousins. It may be just a good friend, but it's a, you know, it's a fun thing to add a photo to if you'd like to. For these purposes, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put adhesive on the bottom, and I'm going to not bother to put the photo inside, and I'm going to just kind of angle these. Once again, you do have to make sure that you don't go, when the whole card is closed, that you haven't gone outside. If I close this up like so, you want to make sure that none of your pattern goes outside of your dimensions, the card front and back covers. To get the next row, what it is from the X's and the O's, it's just the X's and a third heart. So I've die cut, once again using Sizzix. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put adhesive. Remember, the adhesive can only be on the bottom 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to have one of the X's on the left side or the right. I have to think about which is your left and my left and your right, but one on both the left and the right side of the card. And then I don't have the O yet. In the middle, to begin with, I have another heart that's going to be on the between, and placed sort of evenly between those X's. And then the final row is, once again, if I let you look at it first, this is just a smaller size heart. Notice that starting with the back, I've got the larger patterns in the back, and they get progressively smaller so that when you open the card, you're not trying to look over something tall to see something smaller in the back. It just makes good sense to have the shorter things in the front and building to the medium-sized things, and then the really taller things in the back. Now the middle section is going to be the O from the X's and the O's, the hugs and kisses, but I dangled a heart from it. And if you haven't seen how this works, it's a cool way to add another thing, not only dimensionality, but now you have movement in the card. So I've die cut 2, and the reason I have 2 is I have to sandwich something in the middle, and so this way I can close it up. So in order to have something hanging, I first have to create the hanging element. So I've got a little bit of just white thread, and I'm going to layer, let me pull this toward me, and I'm going to layer these. These are heart stickers that I designed for Mrs. Grossman some time back, but I designed them so that you could layer up the patterns. So whatever your favorite heart stickers or die cuts happen to be, you can use those in this part of the construction of the card. Because it's a sticker, I'm going to be able to turn this over, and using the sticky side up, I'm going to take my white thread, and because the back of this heart is also white, it is, maybe if I put it off of the shiny stuff, you can see it a little better. I'm going to place the thread so it comes out sort of the middle of the top of this heart, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'll bring up, you do need for this to be the mirror image. If it's a sticker, and if it's a die cut, obviously you can just flip it over. But you want to align these, but what you've done is you've trapped the thread inside, and before they stick together, I can, with my hands, I can smush these so that I get a nice alignment without any overlap. So you've created an element that's hanging, and then in order to position this so that it sits inside the hug or the O, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put solid adhesive all the way around the O. So you can use whatever alphabet you want, just make sure that it has an opening in the middle of the O and that you have a sticker that will fit and can twirl without catching inside that O. And then I'm going to, once again, I'm going to sandwich that thread so that it's just between these layers, and you can see how it's a little bit off. Before I press down, it's not difficult for me to move this around in order to get a little bit better placement so that they line up better. And it's moving so much, I'm pressing down so I get good adhesive. This extra that I have, this extra thread, it's just easier to work with a longer piece. I'm going to go ahead, I'll trim off the excess thread. And now that I have the dangling element, remember I only want to put adhesive on what would be the bottom 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this into the front pleat. So you can see really how quickly and easily this construction goes together. Now to look at the final elements, let me bring over my finished one again so you can see here. This is the same card finished, but notice the elements in the front, I just used that sticker that I talked about that I colored with a black marker to make it dark. Here's another heart that I added another stripe pattern to. This is something that's really fun to do with your Valentines. You can't tell, but it smells wonderful. And when you open the envelope, it really hits you, this wonderful scent. These are hearts that I die cut from those magazine ads for perfume when they tell you to open it up and to rub your wrist on it. Well, there is a scent on there. So if you find one that you either wear or that you like, you can cut some of the elements out. I cut lots of hearts because, as well as attaching a couple of hearts here with some foam adhesive, I intend on taking more of the hearts and drizzling them in when I close this up and I place this into an envelope. So once you finish the Valentine, you have to think about the envelope. Well, I created this so that it would fit in an A7 envelope, which I'm going to show you one now that isn't actually A7, but it's such a fun thing. I thought I would share it. You could certainly make it bigger. If you want to start and create your own envelope, you can start with a heart shape like this. And notice upside down, here is, it's patterned paper that's white on one side, pink on the other side. It's just, I hand cut it into a large heart. I'll put the pattern on the website, but you need to really enlarge it a lot because the post office has a limit, a small and a large limit. And on the small end, it has to at least be, the envelope has to be at least 3.5 by 5 in order for them to take it. So once you fold the sides in and then you fold the top down, I have to rotate it so that, because it's upside down, this then, the tip of the heart becomes the flap of the envelope. But remember, finished, this has to be 3.5 by 5 for the post office to be able to take it. So You can see whether you're making a Valentine for a sweetheart, a family member, or a good friend, they are sure to love a Hearty dimensional card just like this.